So I hear a lot people saying that this person always makes everything about themselves. This person's always talking about themselves. In conversations, they always turn the conversation back to themselves. Can you tell me your thoughts on this? Because I know that there's a lot of things in the chart that would make that actually really correct for somebody.
We've done a few episodes about using your voice correctly. And there's honestly not enough we could say about using your voice correctly. And I'll explain why. The voice and the throat are what we call the manifestation center in human design, because manifestation at its most like basic boiled down concept is speaking things into existence. I am that I am. You've probably heard people say that before. And that I am is the most powerful two words in our lexicon. So, using our words correctly and in an aligned way to who we are is a very, very powerful tool. When you're looking at your chart, you see that there's a top of your chart and there's a bottom of your chart. The top center and the bottom center are where energy flows in to our bodies from the outside world. So what happens is at the bottom there's this like pressure that gets created, and at the top there's a pressure that gets created, and everything else in our design chart is just circulating this energy, right? It's moving around all of who we are. We're interacting with that energy, we're turning it into something, we're making this inner alchemy of filtering it through all of our gifts. The throat is the place where all of the energy then comes out of, right? So from a Kabbalistic perspective too, one of the things that they say is that the mouth and the genitals are the parts of us that are most close to God, the portals to the divine, because it's through the mouth that we sustain life and that we interact with other people. And it's through the genitals that we also sustain life, right? So we need to eat, we need to communicate, and we also need to procreate. So what they say is that when you have an issue that is either to do with eating, speaking, or sex, it's actually not an eating, speaking, or sex issue. It's a signal that something else is out of alignment inside you. So using our words consciously is not only a way of you know, avoiding bitchiness and negativity, but it's also, do we want to align our intentions with our actions, with our words? It's how we demonstrate how aligned we are to the universe. So, talking about this idea of speaking about everything, making everything about you from a misaligned place, there's many reasons why that could be. So, for example, if you feel like you never got enough attention as a kid, you would now reactively always try and make it about you. So you'd be overcompensating and trying to fulfill that part of you that still tells the story inside your mind that you don't get any validation, by then bringing up stories about yourself in the hopes of, not consciously ever, but in the hopes of trying to get other people to be impressed by you or revere you or whatever it is. If you feel like you never got to take up enough space, if you feel like you aren't good enough and so you overcompensate by trying to make people jealous of you, so you talk yourself up at every given time. And I would say that to a lesser or greater degree, we all do that in probably some small ways. Like we probably do overuse our voice to talk about ourselves to get needs fulfilled that we don't even realize that that's how we're trying to get them fulfilled, rather than get them fulfilled in healthy ways, or to just get rid of the lens and the conditioning that tells us over and over again that no one sees us or hears us or that we aren't good enough. So there are ways of making everything about you that are unaligned. But like everything in human design, there are unaligned and aligned energies in every behavior. So when we look at somebody who, for example, has gift 35 inside their charts, that is one of the gifts that's connected to your throat. And each different gift that is connected to your throat will tell you a different way that you're supposed to use your voice. So some people are supposed to be great raconteurs and storytellers. Other people are supposed to be speaking with enthusiasm, and that's their superpower. And other people are supposed to be explaining things very clearly, and that's the superpower of theirs. Other people are supposed to speak more in sort of like vague but directionally correct allegories, and other people are supposed to be using them to substantiate facts and remember things, like random things that they've remembered, and kind of be able to back up what they know and what they think. And every one of us probably has a combination of all these different kinds of things that are connected to our throats. But gift 35 is the person who tells stories about themselves, and therefore we learn from them speaking about their experiences. So if you have gift 35 and you are speaking about your experiences, to understand that there's a higher way that that looks, i.e., passing on what you've learned to the rest of the tribe so that the tribe can learn from your experiences. Because, it's like when you watch a great movie and you are kind of vicariously learning lessons about your own life, even though you haven't gone through exactly what the person is going through. But ultimately, all stories are things that belie and tell the stories of common human challenges and common human pain points, and the arc of the hero's journey, where we all actually do have a similar life path that we go through on this journey. But through learning about other people's, it helps us deduce lessons that apply to our own. So when you're listening to someone tell a very moving story about how they had all the odds stacked against them when they had nothing, and they were, grew up in a tent, and they were absolutely poverty stricken, you don't have to go through the same thing to extract the arc of the journey that is rife with, you're about to break through, and then you face a challenge, and then you had to double down, and then you had to believe in yourself. It helps you learn about life when we exchange stories. And if you think about what was the number one intelligence builder for us when we were living very primitively, was the fact that we pulled together and we connected in community and we shared stories, because that's how we first gathered data about what it is to be human. So if you're not coming at it with that consciousness of needing to use that part of yourself to make everything about you, and then you reframe it as just, if that's something you're meant to do, and you do it from a clean place rather than a taking place for your own ego, then that's one of the sacred roles that we can play in society.
And I think it's really worth pointing out the nuance between what you just said is that you can be talking about yourself in, like, you can do the exact same action, but it's the intention behind the action that's communicating something different. So you can be telling the same story about yourself, but if you're trying to get attention from people, they will feel that and they won't receive that story in the same way. Whereas me, for example, I do have gift 35. And so I often find in conversations, I'm being inspired by what someone's saying and then sharing a story about myself, and I can feel it land with
Mm.
people, or I can feel it get across what I was trying to get across without me even having to actually say what I was trying to get across to them.
Mm. And it's so repelling. We're all such good energy readers that we will know when someone is trying to make it about themselves. Um, Unless, of course, what could blur that ability for us to energy read is if we also have the story that everyone makes everything about themselves, then we wouldn't even be able to hear it from you clearly. Or if we also have this ability to make everything about ourselves, then we wouldn't necessarily be able to see someone clearly who doesn't make everything about themselves. So it's your filter and my filter and how they interact, that could be getting in the way of a true, pure energy exchange. But even with you, you've had this conditioning, if you don't mind me saying, that you
Sure,
have to be the
whatever.
one that attracts all the attention and puts on the show for everybody and whatever. And so that would have that would have probably, I guess, like encouraged your gift 35 to be used in the wrong way. And the reason why you can now feel it land is because you've done so much work on what's the way that is authentic to me to do that, and what is the way that feels aligned. And like, it's not a one and done, because you're constantly paying attention to life and you're switched on, so that if you do feel the urge to do it from an ego way, you're now able to like rein yourself in. And that's really one of the things that we have to do with all of our gifts, is like, oh yeah, when that gift is kicking and it's on, I know I could use it for the better or for the worse. I could use it to kind of get my way if I need to, and I need to kind of rein myself in sometimes to be like, hold on a second though, are we going to use it for the good forces, or are we going to use it for the sort of not so good forces? Because once you're in that gift, there is, you know exactly how you could use it for maybe not so helpful ways.
No, 100%. And I'm in a family of three people who have gift 35. So imagine, like, I was just surrounded by telling stories about ourselves all the time. So it was just normal for me. But yes, I definitely had to do that energy reading on myself of, oh, did I just speak up? Why did I just speak up?
Mm.
Not being mean to myself about it or anything, but just trying to pay attention in every situation until that urge slowly went away. And then also, I mean, I also have a 3-5 profile. So there's a bit of that is like wanting to share things about my life. I think even a 4-6 profile you've said before that, can you mention maybe a couple other things? Because it's not just gift 35.
Yeah. Well, with the 3-5 profile, they're the people who we want to learn vicariously by watching the story of their life. Like, it's so many actors and actresses have a 3-5 profile. And I say that often just to get people who are 3-5s to understand that we love witnessing like how they go about life, because it seems like they just always kind of have this, like, they land on their feet. It's always magical. It's always kind of dramatic, but in an interesting way. But if you are a 3-5, it feels like, is my life a fucking shit show? And am I on this roller coaster and I don't know what I'm doing? But we don't see that. We see this like very sort of magnetic way of navigating through life's trials and tribulations. And it's very attractive for us because we love to learn through how the 3-5 then tells the story of their life. And then with a 4-6, because they're supposed to be the people who, well, that with any 6 profile, we look up to them as examples. And with a 4-6, they're really the people that are the glue of any group of people. Usually they're sometimes the center of attention, but not necessarily direct attention. So take my mom, for example, she has an open throat. So when you have an open throat, you're not supposed to be the one who is consistently speaking about one thing, or consistently has a stance on things, and is always sounding the same way and speaking the same way and volunteering their voice into the conversation. So this is where it also gets interesting, is because you could be a 4-6 and be seen as this wise example who's energetically the middle of a group, but it's us who've come to think of that means that the person has to be like overbearing with their thoughts, or the person that shouts the loudest. Whereas actually, like, you say so much more as well with your energy, right? So do you command when you do speak, and therefore you speak less? So it's all about understanding what is authentic to you, and then really learning every single different part of your chart, because the unique combination of every gift, every trait, every personality, every profile, like, they all come in together in such a unique way. And this is where you and I get so, like, we nerd out sometimes. We'll look up people who are in the public eye and we'll say, oh my gosh, imagine like having a 1-4 with this incarnation cross is explaining exactly why there's this certain press release about why they're doing this, and is it aligned and is it unaligned. And that's why you just get so fascinated by how humans work so differently. And it's funny that you're talking about how you and your family have, your 3 people who have gift 35 around you. So you can either all sway yourself into more alignment, right? Or you can bring out each other's what we call not self. So I noticed this about my family this week, because I have an open ajna, which is the mind center, which means that when we are in our not self, we get addicted to praising ourselves for having opinions and kind of overly pontificating about stuff and agreeing on like these strong stances about things. And both my mom and my dad have open ajnas as well. So I've noticed that there's the positive version of that is when we're all kind of co-pondering and being like, ooh, yeah, maybe this and maybe it's that. And who knows? Like, how fascinating, how interesting. But the fine line between when you get us into that flow and how quickly we can all bring each other into, oh, but this is great. And no, this is bad. And like, that sort of like heavier thing is, it's like in one conversation, it can be literally one person can bring all of us into our not self together. And it's really funny because my brother and my sister don't have that. They have defined ajnas, which means like for my brother who's like you, he's very good at explaining himself and having his own point of view and really deducing it down and into a very clear way. So when you add him in, it's easier. And also with my sister, her ajna, her mind is not connected to her throat. It's connected to her head center, her inspiration center, her crown. And so for her, it's all about like formulating her own perspectives on life. And then actually the way it is in her chart is that's how she uses it to kind of sit on it herself and turn it into her art or funnel it into the way that she acts and the way that she draws and the way that she writes and comes up with concepts and formulates her imagination, because that's one of her big things is her strong imagination. So if you throw someone in who's aligned with a defined ajna in, it's a whole different energy. But when you're around people who have similar things to you, it can throw you into your not self so much more quickly, and you can kind of all like exacerbate each other's rubbish, basically.
No, for real. It's so funny that you're bringing this up. And just so if you're listening and you are new, if we're saying defined, that means that that center or that gift is colored in. If we're saying open, that means it's white. And I'm going to link, there's 2 or 3 episodes where we've talked specifically about how to use your voice, which we explain a little bit more about this. So if you're interested in this conversation, I'll link those in the show notes. But it's funny you brought this up because I was having a conversation with my brother the other day, and my brother is defined in his mind in the same way that I'm defined in my mind. He has some obviously other elements involved, but when I'm talking to my brother who has a defined mind, even though we both have that area defined, that actually means that we have a set way of seeing things. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine 2 people who have a set way of seeing things trying to get on the same page about something.
Impossible.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
This has been like the biggest lesson of my whole life because I love undefined mind people. I love defined mind people. I love undefined mind people because I feel like they can hear me easier. So like
Mm-hmm.
when I speak to Jenna and my
Mm-hmm.
mom who both have undefined minds and my best friend Kelly, it's a softer landing when I'm
Oh
speaking.
yeah.
It's just like, oh, it just lands in there. And you guys are like, huh, wow, that's so interesting. It's just soft. But then I
Mm-hmm.
speak to my husband and my brother and my dad, who all have defined minds. And it is seriously like trying to clang sometimes those two, whatever those silver instruments are, where you just slam them together and you're trying to make music. Sometimes it is like that. But I was having a conversation with him where when you are so aware that those two defined minds might never get on the same page and you're totally okay with that and you're just sort of like dancing and listening for the sake of interest, it
Mm.
feels, Jenna, like 2 people surfing the same wave. And you're holding, I imagine it felt like I was holding hands with him surfing the same wave. And like one of us would almost fall off and be like, wait, what? And then the other person would pull us back on and we're just like surfing this wave. It's like you're teetering on understanding between each other. It was really cool.
Wow. And that, it's something that you will never understand if you don't have that mind defined, because the way that we take in information, and if you're wanting to learn which one you have, you basically go into the app, and when you look at the picture of your chart, if you tap on any of those centers, you can see it will tell you this one is the mind, this one is the throat, so on and so forth. So it's the one that looks like it's around your head though. And so because mine is white, it's undefined. What happens anytime you have a center that's white is you're able to take in from the outside world. So you're talking to me about your opinions, and I, because I'm basically open in that area, aka swayable, I'm able to basically jump in and enjoy what it's like to have a thought the way Taylor has a thought. But then what I need to do is not attach to that and just enjoy it for the experience and not let it make me think that it's good for me to have my own perspectives and strong opinions. I'm just like enjoying yours. That's where I'm able to receive from the world. And so we get to surf the wave in the same way that, for example, if you're non emotional, you're feeling other people's emotions so much bigger than they are. Us open ajna people are able to feel people's thoughts in such strong, concentrated ways, but we have to not get addicted to that as like a stimulant, a fuel, because me holding on to other people's strong opinions and also then thinking that I'm smart if I have strong opinions is a drug. Like it is an actual drug if I get into that temptation. And I would say that that was probably the biggest center of all the different centers for me to decondition from.
And if you have an open emotional center, you know what she means when she says it's an addiction. Like we are, if I have a white emotional center, which is the bottom right triangle on your chart, the feeling of an emotion is an addiction. So I can imagine what that must feel like. But we're getting really nuanced in this episode, but I think people are going to really enjoy this. You often sometimes will say to me, because you know what it feels like to think like me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a flavor. Correct me if that's
Yep.
a good way to explain it. It's like a flavor in like your brother's mind, the way he thinks is a different flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So when you spend a lot of time with someone, you get really accustomed to what their flavor feels like and you can sort of tap into it. So Jenna will often text me sometimes like an opinion or something and she'll say, this was like, I knew I was thinking it like you.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was a Taylor opinion. I
Yeah.
was thinking like Taylor.
It's like what happens is that wherever you're white, you're almost like for want of a better word, you're sort of polyamorous, i.e., you're able to jump into loads of different pools and temporarily experience what it's like to be other people in that area of life. And then the goal is to like not over identify with that being part of me. Like, imagine if we lived together, it would be even harder because I would be around you all the time. I'd be even more familiar with how you think. And after a while, you can start to see how kids then believe that that's how they think because they're just exposed to that all the time. So that's where you have to create that separation. And that's why learning about what's inherent to you by looking at your chart, you're able to then even have the space to see what might not be yours that you grew so accustomed to because of the soup that we're swimming in of other humans being around us all the time and us being connected to so many different people.
And I'm glad that we've kind of danced between those two experiences because I don't think people understand clear enough that even though you can have areas of your chart that are open that are not supposed to be um, consistently relied upon,
Mm-hmm.
half of the equation is dancing in other people's energy. So even
Mm-hmm.
though I don't have defined emotions, that doesn't mean I'm not supposed to feel emotions. That doesn't mean I shut off, which honestly happened to me when I learned about that. And honestly, and when I learned about the sacral center, because that's about productivity and like that go, go, go energy. I almost had to, in order to decondition, I shut myself off from feeling those things. And I
Mm.
had to realize that I'm missing half of the experience by not just needing to stay empty, but also needing to go open that energy to other people and feel that energy in other people. But I had
Mm.
to learn to not, like you say, identify with it as my own.
That's really the gift is that you come correct as you. And then that's the beauty of why, like, we have other humans who are different than us, is like we get different flavors from different people, and it expands our own enjoyment of what it is to be human, because we can taste other flavors without having to be those things ourselves. Like, how wonderful to witness other facets of consciousness. Like, imagine, well, in human design, we talk about this crystal of consciousness, right? The thing that is the divine God, whatever you want to call it. And imagine this crystal has loads of different facets that the light can kind of bend through. And each one of us is a facet. And we can only really know the full crystal if we can see other facets, right? Otherwise, we can only see our own. And so that's the beauty of all the different facets being here and all interacting with each other, is that we learn about the whole through witnessing each other. And we start to see what we have in common. We start to see that we all have hearts. We start to see the threads in, oh, there are certain people who are really good at this, and how can I help them the most, and how can I enjoy them the most, and how can we exchange gifts and goods and services and ideas and emotions and bonding and connection and, art and all those wonderful things about life. And it's I had an amazing quote the other day that said, consciousness learns about itself through its own creation. So it's in that seeing what we make and what comes out of us that we get more of a glimpse into our ginormous entire picture of what humans are. Like, what are we? We come here being like, what's this game about? Like, someone give me the manual. And we're actually getting the manual together by just churning through life as our little selves that we are. And the people whose creativity that came before us, that we stand on the shoulders of, that's everywhere. In this microphone that I'm using was someone's imagination. In the blinds behind me, in the books behind you, everything that was a creation of someone else is like, it's this net sort of bank that we've built up that we get to learn through. And so, one of the things we always talk about, is, which is so incredible about human design, is it helps you see the unique potential of what other people can do that you never could be able to do. But it actually takes away all your comparison and your jealousy and your insecurity, because it says you have an amazing lane that is only yours, and look at someone else's amazing lane that is only theirs. And actually, it just helps you be in wonder of, you get to see the wonder in every human, rather than thinking this old paradigm of like, one person has to be better. And then that means, if in order for them to be great, it means everyone else has to be bang average. And so I get to watch you be in your magic and have that only add to my experience and my wonder of life and humans, because that it's impossible that it could even ever be a threat to mine. It's impossible. That's a lie. The other thing I want to say, just, we were talking about addictions before this, and I don't know if we've touched upon this before, but wherever you are open and white is where you actually do have space to get addicted to outside things, right? So instead of sourcing your consistent essence from within, when you are open emotionally, that's where you can get addicted to emotions. Where you have an open sacral, you can get addicted to productivity or life force or sex. Where if you're open in your spleen, for example, you can get addicted to being afraid and anxious. So it's also, if your level is 0, it's where you're open, right? Your level is 0, and you feel a 2 out of 10 on speed. So in your system, it feels like it's a 6 or an 8 or a 10. It is a sort of adrenalizing jolt to your system. So maybe this is a conversation for another time, but a lot of the times with human design, you can sort of deduce down what's behind someone's addiction. Is their work addiction coming from the need to feel like they always have life force and they feel like they need to outdo everybody? Is, their addiction to even substances actually needing to feel those strong emotions again because you're open emotionally? So there's so many advanced sort of seeing behind the thing that human design gives us. We're so quick as human beings to look at how people are performing, or look at what people are doing and the actions and taking them on face value, and then trying to judge or come to the conclusion based on the actions. Human design gives you the why behind why we do the things we do. So if you and I are, let's say we have 3 glasses of wine together, the reason you do the 3 glasses of wine and the reason I do the 3 glasses of wine is entirely different based on what's driving us inside our chart, both what is inherent and also what is not there, where we feel like we're lacking, where we're open is the space where we can let those lack thoughts and there's not enough thoughts kind of come in and drive us. So when you learn about the charts of the people that you love, I promise you the amount of compassion it gives you for them and helps you evaluate them from their essence rather than how it's iterating and how you just see it in the world of the 5 senses. The biggest gift that you can give anyone when you are trying to, and this is something people ask me a lot, like, how do I help the people in my life on their own spiritual awakening, or they're not awake or whatever? You don't have to say a spiritual word in your life to them. But the best thing, and we know this, like we all learn from love rather than from shame and kind of beating people into submission. If you have one person in your life that makes you feel like they see how wonderful you are, and kind of is that person who holds the belief in your own capability and your own magnificence when it's hard for you to connect to that, or when you forget, that I really believe is the biggest spiritual transformer that there is. And so even if it's coming from a selfish place of you wanting to have, all your friends and family and loved ones on the same page as you and join you on this amazing spiritual journey that you find yourself on, if you learn their design so that you have a crystal clear picture of what magic is potential in them, and then you become the person who's in awe of that when they don't even know what it is, that is the thing that changes worlds. That is the thing that in this year of mass spiritual awakening, where you can become an accelerator of that, both in yourself and for other people.
I just want to add in there, like, you made me a little emotional because it's so true. And I want to remind people, speak to their alignment. Even if you see in their chart they're doing something that's incorrect for them, speak to the areas that you see that they're aligned, because if you draw attention to those and they pour more energy into those things, it will inherently pull energy out of the things that they aren't.
100%, because the things that we aren't, we do from a place of lack. When you feed the parts of you that make you feel good about yourself, make you feel capable, make you feel that you can see your own magnificence come out of you, you don't need to do the things out of lack anymore. And you start to, like you said, divert more of your intentions towards the things that give you the self-esteem and give you the feeling like you're contributing in some kind of way. And that's where we don't always need to attack the negative parts of us so head on. Sometimes it does come with feeding the light, and I do believe that is going to be an approach that's only going to grow as this speeding up towards everybody having more of a spiritual awakening than ever before this year. So I'm glad that you pointed that out, and I guess it brings a whole new meaning to the phrase that I use a lot, which is "here's to your rising," right? If you believe in someone's rising when they find it hard, and we all forget, and the journey is the remembering. If you are the candle holder for someone's rising and your own, I think that is the ultimate spirituality, connection, love for others that we can have.